Medieval Russian art practices differed in several ways from Western art. One of the major aspects was the lack of authorship. Much of the medieval Russian artwork is known only by the subject and style of the piece or the location of the art, as Russian artists did not sign their artwork. Signing your art was viewed as prideful, especially since much of the art at the time was found in Orthodox churches in the form of iconography. But there was one artist who did sign his name. Onfim, a young boy in Novgorod, drew pictures of himself as a knight on a horse, pictures of fantastical beasts, and even wrote notes to his friends. Onfim's art, though the art of a child, is important because it departed from the tradition of not signing artwork. Even medieval weaponry lacks the maker's mark that Western smiths used to identify weapons. For the West, everything was a commodity that needed to be tracked, like weapons or paintings. But for Russia, especially medieval Russia, art existed to be aesthetically pleasing and spiritually fulfilling. Russian iconography drew its roots from the art of the Byzantine Empire and the Orthodox Church. Unlike the Byzantine icons that were drab and not very colorful, Russian artists used a myriad of colors to create beautiful and elegant pieces of artwork. For the artist, the entire purpose of creating art was to glorify God, to impart holy wisdom and teachings to the people, especially those who could not read. Icons could even contain local history. The frescoes of the Mirozhki Monastery contain blues, reds, whites, and greens, which all contrast with the typical Byzantine blacks and browns. The green color in particular came specifically from the nearby river Velikaya, demonstrating the closeness with nature that is commonly found in Russian art. Icons from the medieval ages still exist today, and one such painting is described as capturing an intense religious mood and having such loveliness of color. Medieval Russian icons served as both spiritual inspiration and also served as instructional tools to those unable to read. Just as icons depicted saints, biblical figures, and priests, they also depicted demons, devils, and enemies of the Russian people. The most common way to depict an evil character was by creating a contrast between the rounded halos of saints and other holy figures with disheveled and pointy hair of the possessed, demons, devils, and even enemy armies throughout history. This pointing or disheveled hair was looked down upon, as people often associated it with danger. Cleanliness and orderliness are often associated with holiness, so it seems obvious that dirty and unkempt hair should symbolize hostility and sinfulness. Even young Onfim drew pictures of wild fantastical beasts. This viewpoint was very ingrained into the Russian culture even at a young age. For beasts and demons, wild hair depicts their evilness well, but it seems impossible to depict such soldiers with hair when they should be wearing helmets. To reconcile this fact, painters would paint the helmets of the hostile soldiers into pointy or oddly shaped helmets. This demonstrates that medieval artists were very aware of both the visual impact of their art, but also the spiritual impact. Just as our Onfim drew wild beasts, he also drew pictures of knights on horseback. Though his depictions are rather simple, they are important because they show that boys even then wanted to be strong soldiers. Onfim would have had a plethora of figures to look up to as strong warriors, and many of these warriors carried very intricate and artistic armor and weaponry. Russian nobles in particular carried very intricate weaponry. One reason was possibly that a sword by itself is just a tool for killing, and it needs to be decorated to make the weapon more honorable. Similar to Western culture, nobles wanted to have weapons that they felt were fit for their position, meaning intricate or unusual designs, inscriptions, gemstones, and other decorations allowed for their weapons to stand out among their fellow soldiers. Damascus steel was very popular among nobles as it bears a very distinct appearance of almost a ripple or water-like effect. Inscriptions also were very popular, especially religious ones. Noblemen took pride in their appearances even on the battlefield. Their weapons were pieces of artwork that they carried into battle, demonstrating their power and wealth and demonstrating the craftsmanship of the makers of the weapons. Medieval Russian art is extremely important as it not only improved on the techniques of previous artists, but it also uniquely reflects the Russian culture. The art of the medieval period is not simply old art that is found in churches. It is important both in religious life and secular life. It should not be forgotten, but instead should be taught and learned from. Just as Onfim learned from Russian icons, so too can Western culture and the rest of the world.